Hi, I'm Bill Arnold. Thank you for listening to this podcast of Real Recovery. There are many more podcasts available at myfaithradio.com. Your support makes this possible. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Real Recovery. Bill Arnold on this side of the studio, and just across the way, a man who's deeply committed to his craft. I'm just not sure what his craft is. George P. Fraser. Hello, George.
That's a good question.
It is. I don't know what your craft is.
When you said that, I kind of have a full-time job being me. And it's a lot of work, and we have a lot of work yet to do. But what a great show we're going to have.
Oh, we're going to have a great show.
Tonight.
Yeah. This afternoon, Mike's going to come on the show after a little bit of discussion, which we always have at the top of the show, which is we like to bring a step in from the 12 steps and talk about it. And tonight we're going to talk about step 10. And it sounds like after you've worked the first 9 steps, you're now prepared for a brand new way of living. Is that what step 10 mostly means, George? Help me.
Yeah. Continue to take our personal inventory, and when we're wrong, we promptly admit it. And there's a couple things with that that's different than step 4. Step 10, we can look at a lot of the things that God has done for us, like, am I sober? Am I helping other people? Are there things I'm doing that are positive? When we are wrong, promptly admit it means we don't rationalize it, justify it, minimize it. We just say we're wrong. We've had a guest on here many times, Dr. Glenn Pickering, great guest, who said, and I learned this 10 years ago from him doing the show, that being wrong doesn't mean you're bad. It just means you're wrong. Confess it. 1 John 1:9, where he's faithful to confess our sins, he's faithful to forgive us, and we move on. And that was new to me because I couldn't afford to be wrong, and I don't think most people in recovery can when they're using. So it's a freedom, but it also is, okay, when you get sober a while, and we feel all Christians are in recovery because your life should be different than it was before, with the help of the Holy Spirit, we move towards holiness, right, Bill? And instead of looking at things we did that were wrong, we can also get to where things we could have done, but we didn't. In a lot of the recovery 12-step groups, you never say no when you're asked to do something, which is interesting because everybody in there at one time was the most selfish person on earth. But in the recovery rooms, whether it's Celebrate Recovery, 12 Steps. It's kind of an honor to be there because you've been rescued from a shipwreck that you thought you were going to die. And now you have this new life in Christ, whether you recognize him or not. And you got to give it away. You can't give it away if you don't have it, but you can't wait to help other people because that's the best part of recovery. And we get that in step 12. But step 10, really, a lot of us do it every night. I'll do it during the day. Think about choices. Well, should I say this or not? And it keeps me out of making amends in steps 8 and 9 if I do it right the first time. Like, don't do that. You're going to regret it. You'll love saying it now, but you're going to regret it later. Is it kind? Is it true? Is it necessary? Got that from a friend of mine named Coach, who was in recovery. I still mess up on that, but here's the deal. We're always going to mess up, and I think what step 10 gives us is gives us the freedom to get back on the beam when we start getting off. I think relapse is a process by which I return to chemical use. So I get off the beam every day, and the farther away I get from going, God, I sinned, please forgive me, help me to turn around. We have our relapse warning signs. Irritability for me, selfishness, anger, pride. And when I recognize those and confess them to God in step 10 and turn around, I can go back to walking with the Spirit. And that's a key thing.
Mm-hmm. So, George, in step 10, you're constantly or continuously looking at what you're doing right and where you're off track. That's totally the whole goal of 10.
Yeah, it's a gift. And as I said, the good thing is you're going to realize a lot of the great things that God is doing for you. It's really hard for me to be down, angry, disappointed, slightly depressed when I realize all the great things God has done for me. At the end of the day, I look at with my prayers, thank you for keeping me sober today. I start off my day with, give me the power, strength, and desire to stay sober before I get out of bed. You go, George, are you that bad? Yeah, I am. John 15:5, apart from me, you can do nothing. Jesus. And then at night, thank him. And look back, hey, I mess up all the time. You're a friend of mine. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you have people in your life who have the freedom to tell you, hey, you're doing it again. The quicker you confess it and get back, it's a beautiful step. But also, what could I do that I'm not doing?
You know, George, I don't often quote the big book, but I'm going to do that right now. Page 84 says, watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them.
Yes. And why do we do that? Because they build. Nothing better than justified anger. Man, I can load up on that. And what it does is you can't, as in 1 John, I believe, Bill, where it says, we can't say we love a God who we don't see when we don't love a brother that we do see.
So let's talk a little bit more about the idea of having a check throughout your day, and then your review, whether you do that in the morning or at night, as to how you did. Maybe you review in the morning saying, this is how yesterday went. But either way, it's smart to do like a little spot check and then a little daily, isn't it?
Well, the book that you're reading out of, the Big Blue Recovery book, says that upon awakening, we would turn our thoughts to God and what he would have us to do today. And for me, I'm a Christian, but the way I walk out my faith is with the 12 steps. The reason for that, I can hear a great sermon by Tim Keller on tape or at church by somebody else and go, man, that's great. I get it into my head. But how do I get it into my heart and my feet? That's by working the 12 steps. I have to go to step 1 where I'm powerless over my anger, drinking, lust, everything, and then work through the steps of getting my ego out of it so God's Spirit can come in. And we do these little checks every day, Bill. You're a very disciplined guy. I've never met anybody that had a good walk with the Lord and was sober and had a good recovery that didn't have a very structured routine that they stay with every day. The gift of addiction is we have to do this every day or we blow up. We don't have off days, and that's a gift.
Mm-hmm. Have you done your reflection today yet, George?
I did this morning. I always read the Daily Bread, and as my mentor, Denny, says, just because you can't remember it at noon didn't mean that you went to God in the first place. And our friend, the Reverend Johnny Hunter, wrecked this for me 15 years ago when he said that God convicted him to not turn on Sports Center when he got up, but go to the Word because you need to go to God before man. And I thought I had covered that with the prayer before I got out of bed, but it's changed things.
Do you ask God, do you do a little reflection saying, God, where was I wrong? Where was I selfish? Do you ask the Holy Spirit to convict you, or
Totally.
can you figure it out yourself?
A lot of times I can. Where I can tell is what they call your emotional sobriety. I don't have the peace of God that passes all understanding. And this is a great self-check with step 10. Did I do my quiet time? Did I get enough sleep? Did I work out today? Did I talk to some people that I'm working with? Usually I've eliminated something, or have I not repented from a sinful act I know I did, and I'm trying to rationalize that it wasn't that bad.
Mm-hmm. George, what's an emotional hangover?
For me?
Or just, for you or for anybody?
Usually when I did something
yesterday
or that I didn't look at, a lot of times I can sin and not really realize it. And the sins for me have changed over the years. I just thought my big problem was drinking, and as I've grown closer to the Lord, I'm constantly in need of repentance. Martin Luther said that. On the trail of going back to relapse, which is really walking away from God. And I need to do that all the time. Thoughts. Usually, Bill, progress for me is thoughts, like I might think something about somebody and not say it, hopefully, but I still think it, and I wish I didn't do that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, like it. All right, George, thank you for that. We're going to take a break and come back, bring our guest Mike onto the show. You're listening to Real Recovery, and I'm so glad you are. We'll be right back. 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 We'll We're back with Real Recovery. Bill, George, Ryan's on the board. Mike is our guest in studio. Mike, welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're so glad you're here.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
Got to be a thrill for you.
We're already losing him, George.
Yeah. No, we were talking in the green room before. This is going to be a great show. It's always helpful to us, and people don't realize this, so I'll tell you, to have people come in and share their story. It helps our walk immensely because that's why we do it. It's God's story in you.
It is.
And this is going to be really a nice one.
Yeah. Why don't you ask the leadoff question?
Why are you here now? Where did you grow up?
Little town in Minnesota, farm country, 11 siblings on the farm.
11?
We were, 11 siblings plus me. We were literally the dirty dozen.
Wow.
Farming. Great way to grow up.
So were you going to church growing up as a kid?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very strong Christian family.
Did you believe in God?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And growing up, did you do sports? What were your interests?
I was a nerd. I was an official nerd.
What does that mean?
I just studied.
Okay.
Studied and...
That's not a nerd.
And shoveled manure and...
That's not a nerd.
Plowed
just
fields.
so you know. Yeah.
I don't know. The shoveling manure thing might qualify.
Well, that could be...
Well, my
so
excuse,
you liked
I say
reading?
farming was my excuse for not being an athlete, but the truth is I
Sure.
was just not athletic.
Okay.
And you liked reading and learning.
Yeah, I was very, very driven. Very driven.
Okay, I have nowhere to go now. I thought we
You have
had
nothing in
some-
common.
No.
Yeah.
No, what later produced, the alcoholic behavior was already there. I can see it now as a youth. I mean, it was just everything had to go really fast. Getting the chores done, getting the, A wasn't good enough. It had to be 100% on the math test. And
Question, in doing that can be really helpful. But do you ever have peace? Because once you do something, there's another goal ahead, isn't there?
That's a great call out. I think that was part of it. It was always needing to get to the next rung on the ladder.
The perfectionism thing, it sounds like that was a big key piece of your world. You couldn't get an A. You needed to get 100, right?
Yeah, and that was the family system.
Okay.
There were 12 of us at the dining room table, and it was who had the best day at whatever it was.
Were you being rewarded for performance?
Through attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was the love you received from mom and dad, did that feel like it flowed freely, or was it dependent on how well you performed?
I think later in life, like more recently, as I've been kind of unpacking my journey through alcoholism and now my passion for trying to be helpful to others, what I recognize in hindsight is that it did feel more like performance-based love. And who knows, that might have been more on me than on my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way I interpreted it.
But you're never off then. You're never off duty. You always have to be performing for that next dose of love and affirmation, maybe.
Yeah, the complexity for me, I was diagnosed with bipolar type 1 in a treatment center at age 52. That's pretty late in life to be diagnosed with such a disease. And I didn't know there was anything different about me. I just really liked to move fast. I traveled for most of my career, and I would move through airports like you would have thought I was a crazy man if you watched. I would count the number of people in each TSA line, and then I would look at if they had a lot of luggage and then kids, and I would have all this calculation going for which lane I should be in.
Can't shut it off.
And that made me kind of, a little difficult to be around, I suppose.
Mike, did you monitor the other lane, the one you didn't get in, to see?
I always got the right one.
Okay.
So if we could take this back a little bit, getting through high school, you're going to church, living on the farm, and getting good grades.
Yep.
And going to college. What was that like when you finally left home?
It was still pretty steady. I mean, I had friends, but my primary goal was to, graduate with a GPA that would get me into the top graduate program possible. I wanted to go one of the top universities in the world, and the financial condition wasn't allowed to do that. I wasn't really in a position to do that for undergrad, but then I was able to do that after being out in the workforce for a few years. And that was really important to me.
When
Status, I think, was really a key piece of my development.
Okay, so that's back when having a master's degree was a big deal. Not that it's now, but back then it was an even bigger deal.
Sure.
And really sought after. And once you got that, you're good. But when you went to college, did you continue to go to church? And at what point did you start drinking?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, church was not part of my collegiate life. When I would go back to the farm, we would go to church as a family for sure. And then in my married life and raising kids, we were very active in church and then confirmation for the kids and so forth. And it was really when I got divorced in 2018 that church just was out of my life and alcohol was in my life. I was always somebody who enjoyed alcohol, but consistent with my personality type, even that was something that I turned into a monitoring system. So I never would have, more than 3 drinks in any setting. And
Really?
yeah, but it was all arrogance. I just didn't, I was kind of a public figure in my company. I didn't want anybody to see me impaired.
What kind of business were you in?
I was in the financial services industry my whole career.
You timed that right. You had a bull market your whole life,
Sure.
Correct? Pretty exciting. Traveling around, good money, meeting some really competent people.
Yeah, I did. I was very, very blessed. Met some really incredible people.
And you were going to church, raising a family. Everything seems wonderful. Were you happy?
On the outside, well, the problem is, that's a great question. Was I happy? Because I've thought about that a lot, and I've thought about what does happy mean to different people. And Psalm says the Lord is our portion and cup, and that portion and cup includes happiness. But I measured happiness by commas and dollar signs, and properties owned and so forth. It all just came crashing to the ground, literally.
Was that like addiction where you had to keep getting more and more and more? Was it very competitive for you?
It was very competitive, yeah. And I entered a world where the level of competitiveness felt normal because everybody to my left and right was pretty much the same way. And I just feel so blessed that none of that matters to me anymore. I consider whatever I still have, literally, it's not mine. I've opened up my house. In the 5 years I've owned the house I'm in now, I've probably had 6 people living there for different periods of time, up to a year. Just guys that needed shelter and needed a brother to love on them.
Well, if the market ever crashes, I'll keep that in mind. You're pretty close to me. It's really interesting being in recovery for a while and working with guys for 30 years. I meet a lot of really competent people, and Bill, you do too, that getting to a certain level takes a lot. But without the Lord leading the way and being the reason you're doing it, it can collapse on you pretty quick. And I think there's great mercy from God in that, because if that hadn't happened, we're going all the way without God. Fair?
Yeah. I gave a talk in a 12-step meeting, and I didn't plan on saying this. It just kind of came out. I said, if I had a choice, if God showed up right at this moment, said, Mike, you can go back to the life you had or keep the life you're in after, doing a jail sentence in a county jail for 3 months for DWI, and just all the, watching my prized lake home burn to the ground. And I wouldn't give it up. I said, maybe that 3 months I spent in jail was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I walked in there and was one of the old dudes the guard thought it'd be funny when I was doing the intake, because I walked in and the only thing I had in my possession was a Bible. And he decided it'd be funny to let me stand there naked with my Bible for an extended period of time. And it was a blessing, because I thought, what a message to me. I got nothing. I got this naked body and a Bible. Who needs anything more?
You had nothing and everything.
I had everything.
Yeah.
And that feeling has never left me, and that was 3.5 years ago.
Wow.
And I've been sober ever since.
So if we could wind back just a little bit here, everything's going well, and we heard about what happened. I'm interested in how we got into jail, how the lake house burned down. I'm sure it didn't happen the same day. Can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, well, the lake house was I had a builder build this per a design that I had created, and this builder was a little bit out of his league in terms of what he was building. So we had several problems with it along the way. But we were blessed to raise our family there and have wonderful times there. But it became my retreat as my marriage was falling apart and the drinking was kicking in big time. And one of the unseen builder problems was the whole ventilation system for the fireplace. And the framing was built too close to the stovepipe, and it ignited. And when that rafter system went up in flames, there was no stopping it. The local fire department was able to come out there, but it was a rural community, so fire truck after fire truck, pumping water, and I watched the whole thing. And I think that's really what set my bipolar off, and kind of an uncontrollable, that trauma. And at that point, it just went crazy.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but at that point, you didn't know you were bipolar, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
No. And, it's really, this whole mental health field, I've learned a ton about it. A lot of alcoholism is co-occurring with other mental health disorders. It was like a 4-year journey of, I felt like a chemistry experiment. I mean, they were giving me different meds, and some would fire it up even more. One time I was in a cop car, it was because I had been walking for about 11 hours to try and be able to sleep since I hadn't slept in a few days. And I thought if I just walked, I could sleep. And now it's about midnight, and I'm kind of lost. And I recognize that a tall building by my apartment, and the only way I could remember how to get there was on a 4-lane highway. So I started walking on that 4-lane highway, thinking that was perfectly normal behavior, and all of a sudden there was a cop car behind me with the sirens on, and that afforded me 7 days in a psych ward. And then I went into treatment after that. But so I can smile about it now, but it was very painful. And the agony of, why is this happening to me? Why can't I just be normal? Because it was nothing like my working years where my brain worked really fast, but I could contain it. And after watching the lake home burn and the divorce, the next day being served with divorce papers, it just, something snapped.
The day after the
lake home burned down, I was served with divorce papers, yeah. So the combination of those two things, plus I was only my first year out of not having a job. So everything about my structure of my life just literally went up in flames.
So you had retired.
I retired, yep, about 9 months before the fire, yeah.
So when you retired, did you realize that a lot of your social network was your work, guys? And then when you retired, were you kind of lonely and not thinking you really didn't have a purpose? Did that kick in?
Well, I was one of these guys that, my plans, I had such a penchant for planning to the point where it was an obsession. So it was retire young and then just enjoy life with my family, specifically my spouse. And when that all blew up, you're right, I didn't have anybody. I mean, I had my family of origin, but that's what's so wonderful about the 12-step program, being part of that and being part of the church that I belong to and the Bible study. The friends I have today are real friends. It's not weather, how is the weather and what are your kids up to? And we have a joke in some of my 12-step meetings where we don't shave for like 4 days so we can scratch each other's face when we hug. Now, what guys do that, but it just feels so good.
I think a lot of us, and the reason I asked you that, we learn that when we retire or we lose a job and all that, people kind of scatter on us. We're not in the group anymore, and we get into recovery, which we really don't want to do, but you have to because the option B is gone.
Right.
And then you realize one of the benefits is I got more friends than I know how to handle.
Yeah, it's really the case. There's the line you've probably heard, real friends and deal friends. And I had a lot of deal friends, people who
Some of mine are both, but the other good guys. So
yeah, they could be both.
I've never heard that before. That's really interesting. All right, we're going to take a short break and come right back with Mike. You're listening to Real Recovery with Bill and George. Don't go anywhere. We're back with Real Recovery, Bill and George, and we've got Mike in studio. Great story, George.
Really interesting.
Yep.
About somebody that can be very successful, not know they have a condition, and then God allows certain things to happen because he's sovereign. Everything that happens, he allows, page 417. And, I got a new life now. My house burns down. I watch my house burn down. How symbolic is that? That'll get your attention.
No kidding.
How did you wind up going to jail?
Well, it turns out...
You don't have to answer.
No. Driving while intoxicated 3 times in 4 years. And I'm only smiling because God has spared me from what could have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I... I'll just say it's a long way from being in a boardroom to being in a jail cell. And
really?
Yeah, it's a long journey.
Personal question. On a night you might go out and know you drove home drunk, like really drunk. Did you ever go out do that long walk in the morning to go look and see what your car looked like?
No, that's the ironic thing. I think, maybe God just did really want to bless me with these because it's not something I did very often.
Okay, good.
The third time I had left where I was and I drove about a mile and parked the car and fell asleep, and that's where they found me and arrested me. So I had the consciousness to know I don't want to be doing this.
Good for you.
But, the law is the law. And, the interesting thing, I mentioned already about being a blessing now that I can look back on it. I learned there was something called sentence to serve. And if anybody were willing to work outside in the county park, in donations for thrift stores that were county driven, for every hour we worked, we got 2 hours off our sentence. Out of this whole cell block, there was only 2 of us. And it was a bunch of young guys, but they didn't have the motivation but I sure did. I had business to take care of. I wanted to get out. And so I ended up getting 22 days off my sentence.
Did you work at like a driving range there? Or
no, no, not so much. A lot of cutting trees, splitting wood for the state park, shoveling. I was in during the winter months. I spent Christmas of 22 in jail. And so it was a lot of work outside, but I loved it. Given my background, that just felt normal to me. And it was really cathartic. The other thing is I would sit by myself at a table during the hours we could be out of our cell, and I had my Bible, and so I was reading. And, God was at work because one by one, these young guys would come and sit at the table with me. And we would basically have time in the Word and then play cribbage. And then I would start giving them, coaching about their, what are they going to do when they get out? I'm just a natural mentor, and I didn't even know it. And now that's what I do. I just mentor young guys, and I get so much joy from it.
So did you go to rehab before jail for a reduced sentence, or did you go after?
Which one?
Did you go to rehab before you were sentenced?
No, I actually, at that point, the diagnosis was, or the assessment was I needed relapse prevention because I had I had about 2 years of sobriety when this DWI happened.
Oh, can you tell us about that?
So relapse prevention was the result of me knowing the system and me not wanting to go into treatment. I had been to 7 treatments. I had even finished 4 of them.
Whoa, let's take a time out here. I want to go back here. How did we get 2 years of sobriety? Is this after the fire, the divorce, and everything?
This after the 3-year drinking spree?
Yeah, I basically went hard for 3 years.
Okay.
Then I had almost 2 of sobriety. And then I'll just
How'd you do that?
A lot of 12-step meetings. That was a
Okay.
period in my time where my addiction was just go to meetings, make new friends, start doing 12-step work. And so that was, and I have not talked to any of my 4 kids in 8 years. I learned through social media that one of my sons got married, and I didn't have the tools and skills to keep myself from drinking. So I chose to drink, and I paid a really high price for that decision. But I did not want to go into another 30 or more program. I felt like with all the programs I've been in, I kind of had it wired. So I kind of, because of my background, sales and everything, I was able to kind of influence the assessor. I said, I think what I really need is relapse prevention. I've got this down. I just need relapse prevention, knowing that was the shortest program. That was 6 sessions, and I was done.
Well done.
Yeah. So I actually did that. I met the requirements before going to jail.
Did that help you?
The relapse, it all helps. It all helps. But the interesting thing is, even though I had not been court ordered to go, here's where some of the most visible sign of God being at work. I had a friend who was more of an acquaintance. I had family members, friends say, Mike, you need to go back into a treatment program. You got to go to a treatment program. I said, no, the court says I don't have to. I did my relapse prevention, my 6 little Zoom calls. And I had a buddy call, and he said, Mike, I've been to 17 treatment programs, and then he gave me the name of the one that he felt was the best, and he said, you really should go. And after all those calls where I said I wouldn't do it, it was like literally I felt God just spin my head around. And I just said, okay, I'll get signed up. I was like, who just said that? And so I went to this program, and it was affiliated through with the University of Minnesota psychiatric area. And it was very much focused on the brain science of addiction. And by the grace of God, this wonderful woman who led that program put me on the right bipolar medicine for me. She said, why have you never been on this in all this time? You've been on all these different medications. And I said, I don't know. I just take whatever they tell me. And so they put me on the, kind of lithium. It's kind of a go-to for bipolar. And it has absolutely worked for me. I haven't missed a day or a night, and it is my God, blessing because so I have such fondness for that program because that and as God works, that same person that called me and helped me is now a roommate in my house because he needed help not too long ago. So it all comes back around. It all comes back around.
Billy, I hear a lot of willingness here, okay? Willing to do this at first, the 6, relapse sessions. I would take the easier, shorter distance too, but get something out of it. Then going to another program that was recommended by a friend.
Yeah.
And when he said, I take the medication twice a day, we have a lot of guys who start off taking the medication and it works, so they stop it, especially on antidepressants. This is part of the recovery program every day. I do this. And that's why you're sober, is you're working your program. And it takes a long time to get that through our heads, so congratulations.
Yeah, and I know we don't have time. I could go on and on about just the miracles and the signs that have occurred in just the last year. And that when I say miracles and signs, it's like I've got such a logic brain, but there's no logical explanation for how this thing happened other than this. I'll say this one. I started wanting to travel again. And so I was going to go to California for a month and watch a friend's house and dog. And all of a sudden I was going to be leaving the next day. I walk a dog for another neighbor. And it hadn't occurred to me, boy, I'm walking right into the danger zone. I got 2 years sobriety. Everything's going well, but now I'm going to go be all by myself in this big mansion on the beach. And just as I was having this thought, this couple came up to me on the trail and said, "Can we give your dog a biscuit?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And then she looks at me and says, "How can I pray for you?"
Oh, man.
And I said, "Well,
whoa.
Yeah, actually there is something. In my arrogance, I haven't even thought about this, of needing something, an extra blanket of protection, hedge of protection." So then she said, "Can I put my hand on your shoulder?" And she did. And she did the breastplate and it was beautiful. And then I went on my trip, and I went to a lot of 12-step meetings out there and enjoyed the beach, and it was great. Fast forward another year. I never saw them. I walked that trail every day, never saw them again. It's like I wondered, were those even real people? I don't know.
Maybe angels, huh?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe
and
you
then
entertained angels.
It gets wilder. Now I'm going out there again to do the same ministry of just being out there. Big suffering to be on the beach for a month.
You should raise support for that.
Yeah, I should. And I know you won't believe this, but it happened. All of a sudden, same couple were there. And I was going the next day to California. And I said, "You know what? I could use more prayers."
Wow. Did they remember praying for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I go to church out there, and there's this big retired LA Rams tackle, and we're talking, and he puts his big, huge arm around me. He goes, "Mike, God has forgiven you. It's time for you to forgive yourself." He just met me.
Wow.
I don't know how stuff like that happens, but
I do. I do.
I think I do
Spirit.
too.
Yeah, and if that friend of yours who's got the mansion on the beach needs another kind of person, I'm not naming any names, that could watch the mansion on the beach,
You'd be
take
very
the
good at
dog
that.
for a walk.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not saying anything. Sorry I even brought it up. All right, we're going to take a break and come back. Mike's got more of a story to tell. You're listening to Real Recovery. Bill and George, Ryan's on the board. Don't go anywhere. We're back with Real Recovery, Bill and George. Counselor, I'm going to give you the next question.
I always feel like I'm in court and I get scared on it. Okay, so God has gotten us sober.
Yes.
We are seeing a lot of signs of God in our life, and we are aware of it, and we are grateful. How did we get back into church and things you're doing now? How did your recovery revolve from staying sober to helping other people stay sober and get to know the Lord more?
It's a great question, George, and I guess part of it for me is having to learn how to be single and learn how to do things by myself. Growing up with 11 siblings, in a house that's smaller than the one I live in alone now, it was a scarcity, crowded environment. And then at a pretty young age, I became a father, and with my work, where I traveled all the time, there were many times I traveled alone, but it was always alone to be with people on the other end of that flight. So it's a new season for me where I think I had to learn how to be alone and sober, not be alone and drunk off my butt, and be okay with that, and just try to figure out how to like me, not because I've got big titles on my business card, and not because I, was the top scoring person on this test or or had every designation after my name, but just because God loves me, and so I must be okay. And that was a hard thing to do, and it took time, and that was kind of my season of just being okay with me. And once I did, then it seems like God just has been putting more and more people in my life. And I have this opportunity to mentor young people, and, both in the 12-step program, children of my friends in the 12-step program who maybe didn't have the career experience, and now their kids are looking at career challenges and wanting to just sit with me. And my goal is to, lead that into a conversation where I can share my witness and share my testimony. It's so rich, I think. It's just, in my mind, there is just no question that God is real, that Jesus died for us, and that my time on earth is just, for starters, it should have been over. Medically, I was in such a bad shape that there's really no explanation for why I'm living. Like everything I did in my life, I would pour vodka into a measuring cup to keep myself right at this level of intoxication that would slow my brain down. I was literally self-medicating with it, straight vodka. And, by the grace of God, that only lasted for, the time it did. I had meant to say when I went to a therapist, and he said, "Do you have any suicidal ideation?" This was right after the divorce. And I said, "No, I don't want to die. I just don't want to live." And that was probably my emotional low point, because that kind of, as much as those words don't make any sense, that's how I felt. It totally explained it.
What was that like to hear yourself say that? Did you really hear that? Because that's kind of stunning when I hear it.
It was very, I was going to say sobering, but it wasn't sobering because it did work. It was just a hopelessness, this just extreme hopelessness. What was it all for? Why did I sacrifice so much of myself for earthly things? And so it was just a time for reconciliation with myself that was needed. And I just look back now and feel like God was just getting me ready for allowing me to focus on what I still do have, not spend all my time focusing what I lost. I've got a book in process, and the title is Lost and Found, and that's kind of how I see my life. It's like, just, I was given so much blessing and didn't even know it. And I lost it, but what I've found is immeasurable. And the friends that I have and the faith that I have, I'm here in this room with you because of attending a Bible study and mutual connections with that Bible study. And this stuff doesn't even surprise me anymore, how these things just happen. And I just feel so blessed to get my story in the hands of at least one person for whom they might be able to identify and provide hope, because that's what we have.
I've always said there's nothing inconsequential in God's economy.
No.
You think a 3-minute conversation was nothing, but it turns out it might have been everything. Every little nuance of your day, God has his hand on. Just the way you talked about meeting a mutual friend of ours, and that he recommended you talk to me about doing the show. And here you are.
So, George, you mentioned when I talked about being single, it's really coming to a realization that we're never alone. So I'm not alone with people around me now, but even if I'm all alone in my house or someplace else, God is with me, and Jesus is with me, and the Holy Spirit is in me. That was really powerful to kind of wrap my mind around, that it came in me and stayed, and I get to share it.
I'm single. I go everywhere alone. It's never been a problem. At the end of the day, I go, "Hey, are we happy?" "Yeah, we are, George." But I get when I first got sober how lonely I was because all my friends drank. And God really showed up quickly with a lot of quality people that were sober. And guys like you're working with younger guys, they can't refute your career, and they can't look for ways to not listen to you. And that's why I love doing this show, is I hear about guys that are very competent at what they tried to do. Their life falls all apart. God lifts them back up and says, hey, I got a job for you. And these young guys coming up who want to do all that stuff, but they got an addiction, they can't rule you out because you have experience, strength, and hope.
And hope.
Yep. It's just so good to be a part of, really. I get goosebumps on this. I just love this stuff, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it's straight out of 12-step. I mean, I'm staying sober right now every day by the grace of God and by the fact that I've got such a conviction to using all of my pain and all my experience and every step of the journey to try and be of service to another person. And God just draws these people into my life to be able to help. And I've been in places and awful hotel rooms and gotten people out of them and into treatment centers or detox centers. And who knew that would be God's plan? But it proves he's got a sense of humor because, as I've said, it's a long way from the World Club at the airport and the places that I used to be, and I would choose this.
You know, somebody said to me when I was young in recovery, and I wish I could remember who it was, you're in recovery now, George. You have a purpose in life. And I think for most of us, when we're using, we might have great outside things, careers, houses, but we're empty inside. And like that guy said to you at the church, the football player, you're forgiven. I hear a lot of guys say, I can't forgive myself.
Right.
That's not in the Bible. That's Jesus's job.
It is, right.
And once you realize he allowed all this stuff so you would come back, he drew you back, you have a purpose. There's people starving, dying every day from addiction, and you can talk to them because you did it.
Really good. Really good. Mike, you have quite a story, and I love what God's doing in your life.
Thank you.
And he's taking the way in which he has equipped you, is like George was just saying, you have a lot of gifts and talents, and you want to use them for his glory and for helping others, which is a consummate step 12, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Say in our time remaining, we've got another minute, how important step 12 is to you.
Well, I look at, step 12, like many of them are in pieces. The first part is having had a spiritual awakening. That's, people kind of jump on that and jump right to the service part. But the spiritual awakening, it to me, it's almost like today I'm going to have a spiritual awakening again. Because for me, it wasn't one white light moment. When I said I should be dead, I was taken by ambulance. My platelet count was 20. It's supposed to be about 250 or better of, what clots your blood. So I was probably very close to just bleeding out. So then to be clever, I would say, I didn't have a white light moment. I had a white coat moment. Mm-hmm. You asked earlier, how did I stay sober for 2 years? Because the doctor scared the heck out of me that I would be dead. He said, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to be dead by Thanksgiving that year. I think the spiritual awakening needs to be part of the story, I feel, because it wasn't. And the rest of the 12th step is just letting God lead and where I can be of service.
Fabulous story, Mike. Thank you so much for doing the show. George, that's all the time we have for today. Great hour. Yeah, another award-winning episode of Road Recovery.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You bet. Thank you for joining us. If you missed any of it, check out the podcast, and I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Programming like this is made available through your support. Information available at myfaithradio.com.